Hello everyone, welcome to this week's episode of The County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. It's been in the news a lot. Bears Ears National Monument, it's now a reality. The conflicts are over, or so they seem. So we decided that we would take a look at life after Bears Ears for our topic. We will start by doing an analysis of the last large monument that came to Utah, and if the promises made turned into reality. Here's Malia Stringham.
Now that the Bears Ears National Monument is a reality, there are many questions San Juan County residents have about what to expect in the years to come. While no one knows exactly, there is a 20-year case study that we can examine: the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. 20 years ago, Claire Ramsey was a Garfield County Commissioner. We asked him what they promised the day after that declaration.
Well, that everything would remain the same, that we wouldn't lose any rights or privileges that we had at that time. And of course, everything changed immediately.
A way of life, a culture has changed, access has changed. The things that we were building and the things that we were preserving have been taken away or starting to be destroyed because of the monument.
Four main areas of local community impact came into play with the creation of the Grand Staircase: transportation, grazing, water, and use of resources all have changed.
But the roads were a big issue. We began immediately fighting over them. In fact, it was from the pressure from Garfield County commissioners that forced the monument people to even put roads into their monument management plan.
To date, Garfield County reports they have lost nearly 50% of the county road miles within the monument. For Kane County, the loss is worse.
I actually did a count in the beginning, and we basically have lost 80% of our roads that we've claimed as county roads.
For decades, people have relied on resources in the surrounding hills for the things they need. Those resources are now off limits as well.
As I remember, there was about 2 areas on the monument you could still gather wood. And so that was affected directly and immediately. There's areas there that people mined decorative rocks, flat rocks, you know, for patios and such, and those things were shut down.
Kane County is no longer allowed to use gravel from inside the monument to maintain roads, and Escalante City had to abandon a nearby source for clay to line their landfill.
It was determined no material could be taken off the monument, so Escalante City had to find another clay source. It cost them a significant amount of money to haul that new clay source to Escalante.
Perhaps the biggest impact is in grazing, the one thing that was specifically promised to remain.
They will tell you that our AUMs have not been cut, and that is true. But can we run the same number of AUMs on our allotments? No, we can't, because of the infestation of pinyon and juniper, of weeds. The physical conditions on the monument are deteriorating due to neglect.
Residents in Garfield and Kane counties feel that the promises to work in conjunction with the communities failed to materialize, and the special concessions listed in the proclamation have been circumvented. It is their fear that the same awaits their neighbors to the east. From the county seat, I'm Malia Stringham.
Thanks, Malia. We'll be back with the county seat. We'll join our panel discussion on this topic when we return.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
When the road takes you farther than you knew possible, when the world is more beautiful than you've ever seen, when home is more comfortable than it should be, this is when you know you're in Kane County. The perfect mix of rural and urban, culture and adventure. Glendale, Orderville, Kanab, Bigwater, small towns with more to offer than just peace and quiet. Kane County, Utah. Find the new you.
Let's be honest, you don't know much about Beaver County. Well, let me tell you about it. It's the birthplace of outlaw Butch Cassidy and inventor Philo T. Farnsworth. Some of the best skiing in Utah is at Eagle Point. You've got camping, Canyon Breeze Golf Course, Crusher and the Tushers, Beaver Territorial Courthouse, snowmobiling, renewable energy, Pioneer Car Show, Squeaky Cheese, Ghost Towns to explore, best water in the country, Paiute ATV trails, Old Frisco Kilns, horse racing, hunting, fishing, and it's a good place to live. Beaver County, mountains of fun. I could tell you more, but why don't you come and see it for yourself?
Planning your next conference or corporate event? The Davis Conference Center offers 70,000 square feet of flexible meeting and exhibit space, plus high-tech audio-visual services that will make your event a success. Whether you're planning a training, meeting, company retreat, wedding, or large convention, let the staff at the Davis Conference Center help you arrange your next event. Located east of I-15 in Layton, call 801-416-8888 or visit davisconferencecenter.com today.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking about, the new monument in Utah. In our last segment, we had a story presentation that looked at the track record or postmortem on Grand Staircase. So now we're going to turn our attention to what do we do now. Joining us for our conversation from San Juan County, Commissioner Phil Lyman, and the champion of the area, the representative, state representative for the both Grand Staircase. You got a lot of monuments in your district.
I got 2 monuments. I'm bad luck.
We'd like to welcome State Representative Mike Noel. Thank you for joining us today.
Great.
So I do want to start with, we talked about the fact that when President Clinton, in that last story, said that we can't take coal out of everywhere, but the rest of life is going to be normal, and yet obviously it has changed significantly. Whether you look at roads, you look at public administration, you look at grazing, water, all these other things seem to have had a significant impact. So how does that make San Juan County feel right now? Because you said nothing's really going to change.
Well, it makes us feel bad. And we don't trust the agencies. We've learned not to trust the agencies with things in the past, and so now that they have a bigger platform and a bigger footprint in the county, it's really disconcerting. And you feel like this will take the course that government naturally takes, which is a bigger footprint and more regulation. And the new manager comes in and says, "Hey, looks like these folks down here are breaking the law. We need to stop this. What's been going on for the last 30 years?" And that's what we're nervous about with the monument. Number one, it wasn't done by our friends. It was done by the people who really seem to have a disdain for the folks in San Juan County and our culture and everything else. And it's not the way it's supposed to happen.
So, Mike, you have you're in a unique position because you used to work for the BLM.
Yes.
So, I want to toss this out. Deseret News last week did a follow-up article saying that, collaboration has now started on Bears Ears planning, but they focused on the collaboration between the Forest Service and the BLM. And it was very interesting that there was a quote from a guy from the Forest Service who was interviewed for the story, and he said that it is up to us, the BLM and the Forest Service, to figure out what to do with this monument. We will be taking advice from the tribal council, but the decision is ultimately ours. Now, that's not the way this was sold.
That's exactly right. And the Native Americans that supported this, and fortunately, a great percentage of them in Utah, the Utah Navajo, did not support this monument. We'll get that message out eventually. It'll come out loud and clear. But no, there's not going to be the kind of cooperation and collaboration like what should go on in normal planning processes under RMPs or any other kind of planning documents. The county commissioners were cooperating agencies. They could sit in on it. No, what you're going to see here, you're going to see a proclamation that was written by one man. It was directed politically, and you'll follow that proclamation to the T. And all these other issues that we deal with throughout all of public land management, throughout the whole state of Utah, 29 million acres and 540 million acres in the United States, is going to be done by one guy, by fiat, and it just isn't conducive to good management.
So how is the, we saw from that roads, when Garfield County was contacted, as he was told in the story, the monument only asked for B roads. And he said, "Do you want D roads?" "No, we don't want D roads. We don't want any of it." They just said B roads. You were with the BLM about that time, weren't you?
I actually, by the time that happened, I'd gotten out. I actually resigned within almost a year of the monument designation and went to work for myself as a consultant, but started two environmental organizations, or two what would I call land use organizations, People for the USA, and got involved with the road issue because they had proposed in their planning to shut down over 1,000 miles of RS 2477 public roads that the county had been maintaining, some of them for as long as 50, 60 to 100 years. And so that's how I got engaged in this thing. So right out of the chute, the idea was a Park Service plan, we shut down access, we cut back on the use of these public lands, and that started. And the only way that stopped was a lawsuit. I actually filed a personal lawsuit along with a guy named Worth Brown, and we got an injunction against the existing county commission. You cannot shut these roads down until you go through a process. Hence we are 20 years later, we're in litigation on 15,000 roads in the state of Utah, lawsuits all over the place, and the whole emphasis of that started with the creation of the Grand Staircase. So the approach that the environmentalists use, and they use the administration to get paid off. There's information on this in WikiLeaks if you want to verify it, from a guy named Michael Matz, used to be the head of SUA, works for the Pew Foundation. We haven't got any monuments designated by this president. We need to get some. That was last summer, and all of a sudden these monuments are coming. And frankly, we've got more coming. We potentially have San Rafael Swell, 1.2 million acres, Cedar Mesa, 2.25 million acres, Greater Canyonlands, 1.8 million acres, and also the Greater Grand Canyon along the Arizona Strip, which would shut down the Lake Powell Pipeline project. So they've got a method in their madness and their planning to shut this down. It is not a collaborative effort. It hasn't been a collaborative effort, and it's done nothing but create hate and discontent for people in that community and people in this state.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a break, and we're going to find out what you guys are going to do about all this going forward when we come back here on the County Seat.
149 million years in the making, dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
There is a place where looking out means looking in, where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
Welcome back to the County Seat. We are talking today about the Bears Ears, although it seems like we've talked a lot about Grand Staircase to this point. But I do want to ask, knowing the history, knowing what's in front of you with a monument now in the process of being planned out, what's the county going to do on this, Phil?
We're going to ask President Trump to repeal it, to reverse it. if you know, had Hillary won the election, we'd be in a whole different mode, you know. And I mean, I say that kind of facetiously, but had Hillary won the election, we'd be looking for some way to get in on co-management, to be a part of the system. Right now, our message, and I've talked to a few people, you know, there's roles to play here, and one of the roles is that of, you know, an upset county commissioner that is saying this can't stand. This has got to be reversed, and so that's the ideal scene for us. But in addition to that, we're also, you know, we've got our resource management plan that we're working on, our county master plan. There still is an obligation to coordinate with the county master plans, and BLM hasn't had a good track record of doing that, but the language is there. It's in the proclamation that they'll do it, that they'll abide by those rules. And so we're you know, vigorously working on our county master plan to make sure that what happens in San Juan County is the county's plan and not somebody else's.
But you are going to be at a conflict on mineral extraction or resource extraction, right?
You know, that's, I've said, our situation is different than the Grand Staircase. Theirs was a real sucker punch because they were right in the middle of, you know, selling leases and manufacturing and, you know, pulling coal out of the ground. They shut us down over the last 2 decades. There's very little extraction taking place on the whole Colorado Plateau right now. And so we've seen this coming for a long time. In fact, it's kind of funny, when I first got on the commission, Juan Palma called and said, hey, I just want to let you know that we're putting Cedar Mesa, which is a big part of the Bears Ears, we're putting Cedar Mesa in the master leasing plan. And I said, oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. I didn't realize that putting it in the master leasing plan meant we're putting it in the master no leasing plan. So it's been shut down, virtually shut down for so long already.
So the county's basically going to put their eggs in the basket of trying to get a repeal or a change. Won't that require legislation?
Well, it's up in the air what the president can do. If I ask him, could President Obama reverse this? Oh, he could. But could President Trump? Oh no, he can't do anything. You know, so it depends who you talk to. Not only to reverse it or repeal it, but to, you know, let's clean up this whole land management mess. It should roll back 50 years, and we should get back to something that is a little bit more manageable. And my hope is that we get a new BLM director in Washington that will do that for us. And I'm sitting next to a guy that just might be that person.
Well, not in your role, your potential role with the BLM, but as a state legislator, what's the state planning to do about this going forward?
A couple of things. We've got some great counsel from people who have been involved with this issue for many years, and so I can tell you pretty much categorically that right off the bat, the president, subsequent presidents, President Trump, does have the authority to reduce the size of that monument, to change the boundaries. It's really, it's been done before. It's been done by subsequent presidents. So if a president can go in and adjust boundaries, he can certainly make it smaller, he can make it larger. That's pretty much out there. That has never been tested in the Supreme Court. So I think we ask the president first to do that, and then we look at a couple of things. This would be what I'd call the silver lining in all of it. Number one, we feel like it's an overreach, that the Antiquities Act has been overused in this case, and also in the case of the Grand Staircase. If you go back and look at the original 1906 law, it was like the smallest area necessary, and in the discussions they said, how big do you think it'll be? And the gentleman from Texas says, you think it'll exceed 1,000 acres? I doubt it. So you've seen what's happened with President Obama, 548 million acres, 24 new monuments, potentially 4 more on the way that will affect us, including the greater Grand Canyon. So I think we can take that in and say, we ask him to change it. At the same time, we take our congressional delegation and others in the West, and we remove the authority of a president in the future to use the Antiquities Act in our state. That's where I would start, because Wyoming doesn't have that, this hanging over their head, neither does Alaska. So we would do that. That's 2 things. And then the third thing would be to look at litigation and actually file a lawsuit based on some of the actual premises that were stated beforehand. It's needed, there's destruction out there, it's the smallest area necessary to protect the artifacts. All 3 of those are susceptible to a lawsuit, and I think we could win that lawsuit.
So I guess the question that comes to my mind is, what if there's a resistance?
From the president?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. I just knowing his nature, because part of his policies were to get the public lands into production again, mineral resources. once we sit down with the president and people can explain to him the situation we have here and how it's so much different than what he's used to, outside law enforcement, the effects on private property, I think you're going to see with his policies and making America great again, this will be something that he'll really want to do. Understanding that we have to protect those resources, but those are in existing law, Chad.
It's an interesting point that you make. Having legislation that exempts Utah from future monuments, Wyoming got it, now Utah's going to get it. Are there going to be other western states that say, wait a minute, that's not fair, and then are not going to be that favorable to it?
I think there'll be other western states, each state is different, that are going to say, we like the fact that the president can create monuments, they'll want it. So this goes back to a state sovereignty issue. We're saying, hey, we like a better process, more local control, more local input, and that's what we would prefer. So having this Antiquities Act hanging over our head really causes a problem for us when we try to go in and be cooperative in management. So I think the cooperation there with 2/3 of our state in federal ownership, federal control, that we need to have an ability to be able to work with them and say, your impacts, not just on the public lands impact our economy, but on the private lands too. Those impacts on the private lands are there too. So we've got to be able to sit down with the president and say, you want local control, this is what we need in Utah. We got the best managed state in the nation. We got one of the best economies. We do that by being cooperative. We're going to work with you, but change this law and let's get back to the basics of federal land management identified under FLPMA and even under the Forest Service Organic Act. So we can do that. I think it can happen.
So I'll ask the question you, Phil. Mm-hmm. What if the president isn't, the administration isn't as on board as we'd like them to be about this? Then what does the county do?
Well, I've said with this proclamation, there's something for everybody to like in this proclamation. For me, it's Thomas Paine said, the closer a disease gets to a crisis, the closer it is to a cure. And in my mind, this is a big overstep, and it has become kind of a blatant issue for people to see that this Antiquities Act, this president has done more than all the previous presidents combined. George W. Bush did his fair share of those as well. And I think it just is really blatant. It shows that this needs to be looked at. The whole Antiquities Act, the idea of using it for broad landscape management, is contrary to the act.
So you think that there's going to be a push? You think that something will happen? We've triggered something.
I think something's triggered. And government will do what government will do, but the people are feeling it now. You've kind of woken up the rural...
The sleeping giant.
Yeah, they're awake and paying attention. So.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with our final thoughts on this subject on the county seat.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
The Utah Farm Bureau has always been there to fight for the needs of its members. With discount programs on items ranging from vehicles and ATVs to health and wellness. The membership fees aren't big, but the results are. We've been around since 1916, and we're not leaving anytime soon. Utah Farm Bureau. We work for those who work to feed the world.
Color. It's something that can be seen. But have you ever wanted to reach out and touch it? Experience it. In San Juan County, Utah, color comes to life like nowhere else on earth. Color can be more than an abstract. Color can be your gateway to a new world. Visit San Juan County and explore the past, present, and future in a way that you've only dreamed of. San Juan County. Color your experience.
All local products have a story of magical places, real people, and delicious recipes spanning generations. So go ahead and discover flavors you've never tasted and friends you never knew you had. Utah's own Discover Local Food.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking about the new Bears Ears National Monument and how the state and local governments are planning to proceed ahead. We're at the part where we say final thoughts. Final thoughts, Mike?
Well, my final thought is this, is hopefully within the first 30 to 60 days, we will have our congressional delegation and our governor and members of the legislature, state legislature, talk to the president and say you need to reduce the size of this monument. You need to cut it down to something that's reasonable. If we really want to consider protecting these, do that. The second part of that would be is that we initiate action in Congress to limit the Antiquities Act in the state of Utah, which I think can be done. And the third thing is to really go in with a lawsuit and take a look at this whole act and get it before the Supreme Court and really define what the authority of a president is and what the authority of a subsequent president would be to be able to revoke or limit or modify a monument. Certainly Congress has that power. It's been given to them. They have power over disposition of the public lands. They can do it. But let's find out what the president can and can't do.
Do you think there's an appetite for that back east?
I do. Well, back east, no, I'm not sure. Part of the problem back east, Chad, is this, is, you know, walk a mile in my shoes. They don't understand the impacts of this on our local economy, what it does to our state, our resources, even our long-term power lines that have to come into this area. What does that do when you have to cross a monument? Simply, you're not going to cross a monument with a new 230 kV power line. You're not going to go in and build a Lake Powell pipeline across the monument. Those are the things that limit our growth, affect our students, affect our economy in the state of Utah, and it's simply wrong to be able to unilaterally do this without proper planning and without proper notification, and that's what happened.
Phil, you get the last word.
Well, I think it comes back to government by the people. You know, this is a republic, and it's designed that the people have a say over their own lives, especially at the local level. And so for me, it's not so much about the product as it is the process. And the process has been really abused, and the narrative has been blown out of proportion. You get these environmental groups that have 100,000 people on their mailing list, and they can blow that out and get all these petitions signed and from outside the area, and it's not supposed to work that way.
What you're saying is it appears big, but it's actually rather small.
It's rather small. Yeah, if you took a percentage of the population, there's not a lot of people a lot of percentage that would agree that, hey, we should go and be able to go in and do this to a community.
How this has not really been asked, but my last question, how much of San Juan County's population was opposed to this monument? Because some of the media reports will tell you that it was like 50-50 or less.
I would say at least 85% were opposed, and it may be much higher than that. I'm sure it's not less than that.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you for inviting us into your homes. Be sure to share this with your friends, and we'll come back and address more in a couple of weeks on monuments here on the County Seat. Thank you. If you like this broadcast of the County Seat and would like to see more, why don't you subscribe to our YouTube channel? Or you can check out our website or follow us on social media. If you'd like to watch a broadcast of the County Seat, we're on every week, Saturday nights at 11, Sunday mornings at 8:30 on ABC4, Good for Utah.